The knock. After 9 years, the day my parents came back into my life, my husband was fixing the loose hinge on our front gate. That is the detail I remember most. Not my mother's white car stopping near the curb. Not my father stepping out first, still wearing that same serious expression he used whenever he wanted the world to obey him. Not even the way my mother looked at our house with surprise, as if she had expected me to be living in regret instead of. What I remember is Daniel kneeling beside the gate with a screwdriver in his hand, calm as ever, while the two people who had disowned me 9 years earlier stood at the edge of our driveway like they had never shattered my. My name is Rachel Bennett. I was 31 when my parents told me I was no longer their daughter. I was 40 when they came back. 9 years is a long time. Long enough to build a home. Long enough to heal in places you thought would stay broken. Long enough to stop checking your phone on holidays. Long enough to learn that family is not always the people who raised you, but not long enough to forget the sound of your mother saying, "If you marry him, do not come back." Him. That was what she called Daniel. Not his name. Not the man who loved me. Not the man who had walked beside me during the loneliest season of my life. Just him. Daniel Brooks was kind, patient, steady, and black. To my parents, that last word erased everything else. They did not care that he treated me better than anyone ever had. They did not care that he was educated, hardworking, respectful, and gentle. They did not care that he helped his younger sister through college, visited his grandmother every Sunday, and once drove 40 minutes in the rain because I said I felt unsafe walking to my car after a late shift. They saw his skin, and they made a decision. They called it concern. They called it tradition. They called it thinking about my future. But prejudice often wears polite clothes when it wants to sound less ugly. My father said, "You are making a mistake." My mother cried and said, "People will talk." I said, "Let them." My father slammed his. "You think love is enough?" I looked at Daniel sitting quietly beside me, hands folded, jaw tight, but face calm. "No," I said. "Respect is enough, and he gives me that." My mother looked at me like I had slapped her. "You are choosing him." "No," I said. "You are making me choose." That was the last dinner I had in my parents' house. 3 weeks later, Daniel and I got married in a small garden behind the courthouse. His family, his mother cried happy tears. His sister gave a speech. His grandmother held my face in both hands and said, "Baby, you are family now." My side of the chair stayed empty. I told myself it did not matter. It did. Every empty chair was a wound. But Daniel never rushed my grief. He never told me to get over it. He never asked me to hate my so he could feel better. He simply held my hand and let me mourn the family that had chosen pride over love. For 9 years, my parents did not call. Not on birthdays. Not when our son Caleb was born. Not when our daughter Maya came 3 years later. Not when I sent one message after my grandmother passed away and asked if I could attend the service. My mother replied with one sentence, "It would be better if you stayed away." So I did. I stayed away from people who had turned my marriage into a scandal and my children into strangers. I built a life. Daniel and I opened a small home renovation business together. He had the skill, I had the planning. We started with bathroom repairs and kitchen cabinet, then grew into full restoration work. It was not glamorous at first. We worked late nights. We argued over invoices. We ate cheap dinners in the truck between jobs. We learned how to survive together. Then the business grew. Not overnight. Not like a miracle. Slowly. Honestly. One satisfied client at a time. By the 9th year, Brooks and Bennett Restoration was no longer small. We had employees, contracts, a warehouse, a reputation for rescuing old homes other companies said were not worth saving. That was the life my parents returned to. Not the ruined life they had predicted. Not the shame they had imagined. A real home, a strong marriage, 2 beautiful children, and a husband who looked up from fixing our gate when my father walked toward him and said, "We need to speak to Rachel." Daniel stood slowly. He did not smile. He did not get angry. He wiped his hands on a cloth and said, "Rachel decides who she speaks to." My mother's face changed, because in her world, husbands spoke for wives. In mine, my husband stood beside me while I used my own voice. I came out onto the porch when I heard voices. For 1 second, I forgot how to breathe. My mother looked older. My father looked thinner, but their eyes were the same eyes that had watched me pack a small suitcase 9 years ago and walk out of their house. My mother pressed her lips together. "Rachel," she said, "not sweetheart, not daughter, Rachel." I held the porch railing because my knees felt weak. "What are you doing here?" My father lifted his chin. "We need help." That was it. No apology, no explanation. No, we were wrong. No, how are our grandchildren? Just 4 words. "We need help." Daniel turned his head toward me, waiting, always waiting for me to choose. My mother looked past him, into the yard, at the toys near the steps and the bicycles by the garage. "You have children," she whispered. I felt something inside me harden. "Yes," I said. "You have grandchildren." She flinched. My father cleared his throat. This is not the time for bitterness. 9 years of silence, and he still thought he could decide the tone. I stepped down from the porch. "Then what is it time for?" He looked at Daniel, then back at me. "We are losing the house." For a moment, I said nothing. The house. The same house where I grew up. The same house where they told me my marriage was a disgrace. The same house I had been forbidden to enter. My mother started crying. "Your father's business collapsed after the loss. The bank is moving quickly. We tried everything. We would not be here if there was another way." I looked at Daniel. His face was calm, but I knew him. I saw the slight tension in his jaw. My father said, "We need a bridge loan, temporary." You and your husband seem to be doing well. Your husband, still not Daniel. I almost laughed. They had disowned me for marrying him. Now they wanted his money to save their house. Daniel folded the cloth and then he said quietly, Mr. Bennett, before you ask my wife for money, maybe you should tell her the whole truth. My father went still. My mother stopped crying. I turned to Daniel. What truth? Daniel looked at my parent, and in that moment I realized he knew something I did not. My father's face turned pale. Do not, he said. Daniel's voice stayed calm. She deserves to know. My mother whispered, please. I looked between them. Know what? Daniel reached into the back pocket of his jeans and pulled out a folded paper. Not a big file, not a stack of documents, just one folded paper. He handed it to me gently, and when I opened it, the past 9 years shifted under my feet. Because my husband had not just been rejected by my parents, he had saved them once before, and they had hidden it from me. The dinner that ended my childhood 9 years earlier, before the driveway, before the children, before the business, before my parents came back asking for help, there was a dinner. I remember every detail because some nights brand themselves in. The roast was dry. The dining room curtains were half open. My mother had set out the good plates, which meant she wanted the evening to look peaceful even if she planned to make it painful. Daniel wore a navy button-down shirt. He had asked me twice if it was too formal, and I told him he looked perfect. He did. He always had a way of looking steady, even when nervous. I had brought him home because I believed, foolishly, that once my parents met him properly, they would understand. They had heard about him before, of course. At first, I simply said I was dating someone. My mother asked what he did. I said he worked construction management and was studying business at night. My father asked about his family. I said his mother was a nurse, his father had passed when he was young, and he helped his grandmother with repairs around her house. My mother smiled politely and she asked to see a picture. That was the moment everything changed. I showed her a photo of Daniel and me at a charity 5K. We were sweaty, laughing, holding paper cups of water. My mother's smile did not fade all at once. It froze first. Then it became something else. Small, tight, careful. Oh, she said. One word. But I heard everything inside it. My father looked at the photo later and said nothing for a long. Then he asked, "Is this serious?" I said yes. He placed my phone on the table like it had become dirty. "We need to talk." I did not want to talk. I already knew what kind of talk it would be. For weeks, they tried softer methods first. My mother asked whether I had thought about cultural differences. My father asked whether Daniel's background was stable. My aunt called and said marriage was already hard without adding pressure. My cousin sent me articles about divorce rates and interracial marriage, pretending it was concern. Concern became the family word for prejudice. When I challenged them, they acted wounded. "We are only trying to protect you." "From what?" I asked. She did not answer, because honest prejudice often has no honest language. So I decided to bring Daniel to dinner. I thought if they saw his kindness, his patience, his intelligence, his calm way of listening before answering, they would soften. I underestimated how hard people will fight to keep a bias they call wisdom. Dinner began politely. My mother asked about his work. Daniel answered respectfully. My father asked about his future plans. Daniel explained that he wanted to start a restoration business one day, focusing on old homes. My father smiled slightly. "That is ambitious." Daniel nodded. "Yes, sir, I believe old things can be saved if the foundation is still good." I remember that sentence because years later it would describe everything. The house, our marriage, and maybe even painfully my parents. For a while the evening almost worked. Then my father asked, "And what do your people think of Rachel?" The room went silent. Daniel's hand paused near his glass. I looked at my father. "My people?" Daniel asked calmly. My father leaned back. "Your family, your community." Daniel did not raise his voice. "They love her." My mother looked down at her plate. My father said, "Love is easy at the start." I said, "Dad." He ignored me. "Marriage is not just feeling, it is reality. People notice differences. Children notice. Society notice." Daniel placed his fork down. "With respect, sir, children notice what adults teach them to." My father's face hardened. That was the first moment he truly disliked Daniel. Not because Daniel was rude, because Daniel was right. My mother began crying softly. "I just do not want Rachel to suffer." I said, "You are the only one making me suffer right now." She looked. My father stood. "That is enough." Daniel stood too, but slowly. Not challenging, just refusing to be looked down on. "Mr. Bennett," he said, "I love your daughter. I will protect her heart as best I can. I will work hard. I will respect her. I will never ask her to choose between me and you. But I cannot change who I am to make you comfortable." My father pointed toward the door. "Then you can leave my house as you are. If he leaves, I leave." My mother gasped. "Rachel?" I said, "No, you do not get to insult him and ask me to stay." Dad's voice dropped. "If you walk out that door with him, do not expect to walk back in. There are moments in life when you can feel childhood." That was mine. I looked at the dining room where I had done homework, the hallway where family photos hung, the kitchen where my mother taught me to bake, the stairs I had run up as a girl. Then I looked at Daniel. He shook his head slightly, as if telling me I did not have to do this for him. But I was not doing it only for him. I was doing it for myself. For the woman I wanted to become, for the children I might have one, for the simple truth that love without dignity is not love at all. I picked up my purse. My mother sobbed. My father looked away. Daniel opened the door for me, and I walked out. 3 weeks later, we married. 3 months later, my parents sent a letter through my aunt. It said they needed time. Time became a year, then 3, then then 9. And somewhere in those 9 years, my husband did something for them that I never knew about. Because Daniel, unlike my parents, never believed kindness had to be announced to be real. The life they thought would fail the first year of our marriage was not easy. People think choosing love makes everything beautiful immediately. It does not. Sometimes choosing love means sitting on the floor of a one-bedroom apartment, eating instant noodles, wondering if your mother still has your birthday circled on her calendar. Sometimes it means smiling at your husband's family while quietly grieving your own. Sometimes it means hearing a stranger say something cruel in a grocery store and realizing your parents' rejection was not separate from the world's ugliness. It was part of it. Daniel knew I cried in the bathroom. He never forced the door open. He would sit outside with his back against it and say, "I'm here when you're ready." That was his way. Steady, patient, present. His mother, Angela, became the kind of family I did not know adults could choose to be. She called me baby girl within a month. She taught me how to make gumbo. She corrected Daniel when he forgot to take out the trash. She came to every appointment when I was pregnant with Caleb. She cried when she held him for the first time and said, "This child is proof love outlives foolishness." I wanted my mother there, that was the truth. Even surrounded by love, I wanted her. When Caleb was born, I sent a photo to my parents. No message, just the photo. A tiny baby wrapped in a white blanket, Daniel's finger in his hand. The message showed delivered, no reply. 3 days later, my aunt texted, "Your mother is not ready, not ready." As if my son's life was an invitation they could decline until convenient. Daniel found me crying in the nursery at 2 in the morning. I said, "Why does she hate me more than she loves him?" He took Caleb from my arms, placed him gently in the crib, then held me. "She does not know how to love past her fear," he said. That was Daniel. Even then, he did not turn my mother into a monster so I could hate her easier. He simply told the truth. Our early business started in that same season. Daniel was good with his better than good. He could walk into an old room, touch a cracked window frame, and tell you where water had entered years before. He respected old homes like they were elders. He listened to them. I handled schedules, clients, invoices, permits, calls, budget. At first, nobody took us serious. A young interracial couple with an old pickup truck and a printed stack of business cards from a discount shop. Some clients looked at me when speaking. Not Daniel, some looked at Daniel like they expected him to be labor, not owner. Some asked questions that were not really questions. Daniel stayed calm. I did not always. One afternoon, after a man asked if Daniel worked for my husband, I snapped, "He is my husband, and he owns half this company." Daniel laughed for 10 minutes in the truck after. Not because it was funny, because he loved when my fire. Slowly we built. 1 bathroom became 3 kitchens. 3 kitchens became a full house restoration. That client referred us to a historic district project. That project led to city contract. We hired 2 workers, then 5, then 12. We made mistakes, lost money once, almost gave up twice. But we stayed on it. Daniel said reputation was built in quiet moments. The nail you do not skip. The leak you fix before the client sees it. The invoice you explain clearly. The apology you give before being asked. By year 5, Brooks and Bennett Restoration had a reel off. By year 7, we bought a house with a wide porch and a messy backyard. By year 9, the same people who had predicted my life would become difficult now drove past renovated homes with our sign in the yard. But my parents did not come. I heard about them through others. Dad's small manufacturing supply business struggled. Mom had become more withdrawn. My younger cousins said they never mentioned me. My aunt once hinted that my mother kept a box of photos in her closet. I tried not to. Care is stubborn. It grows even where you stop watering. Then one year, during tax season, I saw something strange in our old business record. A payment from Daniel's personal account to Bennett Supply Group. My father's company. The date was 7 years earlier. The amount was not small. I asked Daniel about it. He looked at the screen, then said, "Old matter. What old matter?" He closed the laptop gently. "Rachel, it was handled." "Daniel," he sighed. "Your father's company had a payroll issue. I heard through someone. I helped bridge it." I stared at him. "You gave my father money?" "No. I invested in a receivable note through a third party." "That sounds like giving money with paperwork." He smiled sadly. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were pregnant with Maya, and your blood pressure was already high, and because I did not do it to buy their love, I could not speak." The man my parents rejected helped save my father's company, quietly, without asking, without ever using it against them. I asked, "Did they know it was you?" Daniel looked away. "Eventually." "Did they say anything?" "No." That hurt almost as much as the original rejection. They had taken his help and stayed silent. I wanted to call them that. Daniel asked me not to. "Let them carry what they know," so I did. I let them carry it. Until the day they appeared in our driveway and asked for help again. And this time, Daniel did not stay silent. The demand hidden inside tears when my father said they were losing the house. A part of me wanted to step toward my mother. That is the hardest truth to admit. Even after everything. Even after the empty wedding chairs, the unanswered baby photo, the funeral I was told not to attend, the years of silence, my body still remembered being a daughter. My mother cried, and some old piece of me wanted to comfort, but another part of me held still. The part that had learned tears could be real and still be used as pressure. I asked, "Why come now?" My father looked offended. "We are your parents." "You were my parents 9 years ago too," my mother sobbed. Daniel stood beside me, close but not touching. He knew I needed space to stand on. Dad said, We made mistakes. That was the first almost apology. Mistakes. A mistake is forgetting milk. A mistake is missing a turn. Disowning your daughter for marrying a good man is not a mistake. It is a choice. I said, what exactly do you need? My father cleared his throat. The bank has given us 30 days before moving forward. We need $280,000 to stop the process restructure. I laughed once because my body had no other way to release the shock. Mom whispered. How? Dad said. Once the business lawsuit settles. Daniel's face changed, slightly, enough for me to notice. What lawsuit? I asked. Dad looked annoyed. It is complicated, Daniel said. It is not complicated. My father's eyes cut to him. Daniel continued calmly. Bennett Supply Group lost a breach of contract. The appeal was denied. There is no settlement coming. My mother looked at Daniel with panic. How do you know that? Daniel did not answer her. He looked at me. That is part of the truth. My chest tightened. The folded paper in his hand seemed heavier. Dad said, this is none of your business. Daniel turned to him. You came to my home asking my wife for nearly $300,000. You made it our business. Our, one word. That was the difference between the family I lost and the family I built. My mother said, Rachel, please, we cannot lose the house. It is your childhood home. I looked at her. The home I was told not to enter? She flinched. I was angry. For 9 years she looked down. Dad said, this is not productive. I turned to him. No, Dad. It is honest. He hated that. He had always preferred productive conversation. Productive meant everyone moved toward what he wanted. Honest meant we might stop. Daniel handed me the folded paper. Read it. My father stepped forward. Daniel. The way he said my husband's name shocked me, because he had avoided it for years. Now it came out like a warning. I unfolded the paper. It was a copy of an old financial note, 7 years earlier. A bridge funding agreement. Bennett Supply Group, $36,000. Structured through a private business contact. At the bottom there was a handwritten acknowledgement from my father. I recognize Daniel Brooks as the private backer of this note and agree repayment will be made through standard terms. My hands shook. He had known. My father had known Daniel helped him. My mother looked at the paper and covered her mouth. I whispered, you knew? Dad's face was stone. It was a business matter. You took help from the man you rejected? He said nothing. Daniel's voice was low. I asked the broker not to tell them at first. Your father found out during repayment. He knew before Maya was born. I looked at Mom. Did you know? She cried harder. Yes. The word nearly broke me. Yes, they had both known. They knew Daniel had helped. They knew I was carrying their second grandchild. They knew we were building a life. And still they never called. My mother reached toward me. I wanted to. I stepped back. But you didn't, Dad said. We paid the note back. Daniel nodded. You did? Then why bring it up? Daniel looked at him for a long moment. Because you are standing in my driveway asking my wife for money while still acting like I am beneath his family. Silent. The kind that strips paint from old walls. My father's jaw worked, but no words came. Daniel continued. I helped once because Rachel was pregnant, and I did not want stress reaching her. I stayed silent because I respected her healing. But I will not let you walk back into her life pretending you never benefited from the man you told her to abandon. My mother whispered. We were wrong. Dad looked at her sharply. She said it again, louder. We were wrong. For a second, I saw something real in her face. Not enough, but real. My father looked at me. Are you going to let your husband speak to us like this? I almost smiled. There he was, still trying to use the old structure. Father above daughter, daughter beneath father, husband as outsider. But my life had changed. I stood beside Daniel. He is speaking the truth. Dad's face hardened. You have changed. Yes, I was loved properly. That hit him harder than anger would have. My mother began crying and Dad looked away. Daniel folded the cloth he had used on the gate and placed it on the porch rail. Then he said, Rachel decides what happens, but no money leaves this house without truth first. My father scoffed. What more truth do you want? Daniel looked at my mother. Tell her why the bank moved so fast. Mom went pale. My heart dropped. What does that mean? Daniel's voice was gentle when it means they did not only come because they need help. They came because your name is still connected to something they did. The signature I never gave at first. I thought Daniel meant an old family, maybe a document from before I married, maybe something small, forgotten, explainable. I was wrong. My mother sat down on the porch step like her legs had failed. My father said, enough. Daniel looked at him. No, enough was 9 years ago. I turned to my parents. What is my name connected to? My father's silence frightened me more than shouting. Mom wiped her face. When your grandmother died, there were some documents. I felt cold. My grandmother's estate? She nodded. The same grandmother whose funeral I was told not to attend. The grandmother who had loved me quietly, who used to slip $20 bills into my purse when I visited, who once told me, your parents are afraid of what they do not understand, but that does not make them right. I had not been allowed to say goodbye. Mom continued, voice shaking. She left you something. The yard seemed to tilt what Dad said. It was not simple. I looked at him. What did she leave me? Mom whispered, a share of the house. I stared at her. Our house? My childhood home. The house they were now trying to save. She nodded. Your grandmother owned part of it from when she helped us buy it years ago. In her will she left her share to you. I could not speak. For 9 years they had told me I had no place in it. But legally my grandmother had left me part of it. Daniel already knew. I could see it in his face. I whispered, how long have you known? My mother cried. Since after the funeral they told me not to attend. I stepped backward. Daniel reached slightly toward me and stopped, letting me choose whether to take his hand. I did. My father said, "It was a small share." Daniel said, "25% is not small." My head turned toward him. 25%. My grandmother had left me a quarter of the home I was banned from, and my mother said, "Your father thought it would create complications." I laughed. It sounded broken. "Complications?" Dad said. "You had separated yourself from the family." I looked at him in disbelief. "You disowned me. You chose." Finish that sentence carefully, Daniel. His voice was calm, but something in it made my father stop. Mom covered her face. I asked, "What did you do with my share?" Dad said nothing. Daniel answered because he had the documents. "They signed refinance papers representing full ownership." My stomach dropped. "When?" "Twice. The first was 6 years ago. The second was last year." I looked at my parents. "You used my share," Dad said. "We maintained the property. We paid the mortgage. You were not involved. I was not told. You were gone. I was exiled." The word hung in the air. Exiled, that was what it had been. Not distance, not disagreement, exile, Daniel said. "The bank discovered the ownership issue during foreclosure review. That is why they came now." My mother whispered, "We were going to tell you." "When?" No answer. Daniel handed me another paper, a copy of the deed record. My name was there. Rachel Bennett Brooks, recorded beneficiary. My grandmother had used my married name. She had accepted what my parents rejected. That made me cry, not loudly. Just one tear, then another. Grandma had known me as Daniel's wife and still chosen me. My father looked uncomfortable. My mother whispered, "She loved you." I looked at her. "And you hid that from me." She closed her eyes. Yes, that yes was the beginning of truth. Late, painful, but truth. Dad tried one last. "Rachel, whatever mistakes were made, the house is still family property. If it goes into foreclosure, everyone loses, including you." There it was, the demand wrapped in logic. Now that I owned part of the house, they needed me, not as daughter, as signature, as money, as solution, just like always. I asked, "What do you want from me exactly?" Dad said, "We need you to sign a temporary authorization so the bank can restructure, and we need funds to cover the." Daniel said, "And if she refuses?" Dad looked at him. "Then the bank will continue and her 25%." Dad's jaw tightened. "It becomes complicated." Daniel, "Truth often." My mother whispered, "Rachel, please. I know we hurt you. I know. But this is our home." I looked at our house behind me, the one Daniel and I built, the porch where my children played, the windows glowing warm in the late afternoon. Then I looked at my parents. It was my home too. Mom cried. Dad looked away. I said, "You took that from me." "Then you hid the part Grandma gave back." The silence that followed was heavier than any apology. Daniel squeezed my hand once. I looked at him. "What do we do?" He said, "We call our attorney." Dad exploded. "Attorney? This is family." I looked at him calmly. "No, Dad, this is paperwork you hid for years." And for the first time, my father looked afraid. The meeting at the bank 3 days later, we sat in a bank conference room. Not my parents' kitchen, not my childhood living room, not a place where my father's voice could control the walls. A bank conference, glass table, gray chairs, quiet lighting, a pitcher of water no one touched. Daniel sat on my right. Our attorney, Marissa Cole, sat on my left. She was sharp, calm, and exactly the kind of woman my father hated dealing with because she did not respond to intimidation. My parents sat across from us. My mother looked like she had not slept. My father looked furious. A bank representative named Mr. Ellis began the meeting. "We are here to clarify ownership, outstanding loan status, and possible resolution options regarding the Bennett property." The Bennett property, not home property. Sometimes legal language removes emotion so truth can breathe. Mr. Ellis reviewed the record. My grandmother had held a 25% interest in the house because she helped my parents purchase it decades earlier. Her will transferred that interest to me. The transfer was recorded after probate. Not hidden, not unclear. Recorded. My parents had received notice. They had not forwarded it. They had refinanced twice while failing to disclose the ownership change properly. My father tried to interrupt. Marissa lifted one finger, slightly let him finish. My father's face reddened. Mr. Ellis continued. "The bank had uncovered the discrepancy during foreclosure review because title verification became necessary before further action. That meant my parents had not come to me out of love. They came because the bank found my name." I felt Daniel's hand near mine under the table, not grabbing, just present. Mr. Ellis turned to me. "Mrs. Brooks, did you authorize the previous refinances?" "No." "Were you aware of your ownership interest?" "No." "Did you receive payments, notices, or benefit from the property?" "No." My mother started crying. My father stared at the table. Marissa asked the bank representative, "What is the current arrears amount?" He gave them. "It was worse than my parents." "Of course it was." My father said we had planned to explain everything. I turned to him. "You plan to ask for money first." He said nothing. Daniel spoke then. "Mr. Ellis, what happens if Rachel declines to sign any restructuring agreement?" Mr. Ellis explained carefully. "The bank could proceed, but my ownership interest complicated the process. Any sale or foreclosure would require proper recognition of my share. My parents could not simply erase me. The bank preferred settlement, but only with all parties properly. 2 words my parents had avoided for years," my mother whispered. "Rachel, we are sorry." Marissa said, "Sorry is not a legal remedy." I almost smiled. My father snapped, "We are not criminal." Daniel looked at. No one used that word. My father looked away. "Guilt hears accusations and facts." Marissa placed Daniel's old funding note. There's also the matter of prior financial assistance provided by Daniel Brooks to Bennett Supply Group. After Mr. Bennett rejected him from the family, my father stiffened. Mr. Ellis looked surprised. My mother cried harder. Marissa continued. This matters because the current request is not the first time Mr. and Mrs. Bennett benefited from my clients while concealing material facts from Rachel. My clients, not daughter, not husband. Clients, protected people. My father said that old note was repaid. Daniel said yes, the money was repaid. The truth was not. That line silenced everyone. For the first time, my mother looked directly at Daniel. I'm sorry, she said. Daniel did not respond immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. I appreciate that, but Rachel needed that apology more than I did. Mom turned to me. I am sorry, she repeated, for all of it, for the wedding, for the babies, for your grandmother's funeral, for the house. I was wrong. I wanted to feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt exhausted. Some apologies arrived carrying the weight of every year they were missing. I said thank you. My father did not apologize. Not then. He asked about options. That was his way of avoiding emotion. Mr. Ellis explained possible paths. 1. My parents could sell the house voluntarily, pay the debt, and distribute my share properly. 2. They could restructure if I agreed and if funds were brought current. 3. The bank could continue formal act. My father said, Rachel can help us keep it. I looked at him. You still think I should save the house you kept me out of? It is your childhood home. No. It is the place where you told me I was no longer your daughter. My mother sobbed. Daniel's face was still. Marissa asked me gently, Rachel, what do you want? Everyone looked at me. For once the question was mine. What did I want? Revenge? Maybe part of me did. I wanted my father to feel the helplessness I felt at 31. I wanted my mother to sit with unanswered messages. I wanted them to understand what it meant to be locked out of a home by people who claimed to love you. But deeper than that, I wanted freedom. I did not want their house. I did not want their guilt. I did not want to become the person who saved them without truth again and again until my children learned that love meant self-erasure. I looked at Miss Ellis. I will not sign a restructure. My father's head snapped up. I continued. But I will agree to a voluntary sale if my ownership is recognized, all records are corrected, and the proceeds are distributed legally. My mother cried into her. My father whispered, You would make us sell. I looked at him. No. Your choices brought you here. I am refusing to hide them. Daniel lowered his eyes, and I knew he was proud of me, not because I was punishing, because I was finally choosing truth without apology. The house where everything began, my parents had 30 days to decide. For 2 weeks, my father resisted. He called Marissa instead of was wise. He argued that the house value would recover. He claimed the bank had acted aggressively. He blamed the lawsuit, the economy, the pandemic, contractors, former employees, everyone except himself. My mother called me once. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was quiet. I know you need space. I just wanted to say I found the baby photo you sent. I kept it. I listened to that message 3 times. Then I saved it. Not because it fixed anything, because pain is complicated. Eventually, the numbers forced my father to accept reality. The house would be sold, not under panic foreclosure, not under another hidden refinance. A proper sale, with my share recognized. The first time I returned to my childhood home, Daniel came with me. My parents were there. Marissa was there too, because I did not trust emotional rooms without legal protection. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The porch paint was peeling. The garden beds were overgrown. The front window still had the tiny scratch from when Darren, the neighbor boy, threw a baseball too hard when we were kids. Inside, the smell nearly broke me. Old wood, lemon cleaner, dust, my mother's lavender soap. I stood in the entryway and felt 31-year-old me walking out with a purse, a shaking heart, and a man my parents refused to see. Daniel stood beside me. He did not touch anything. My father watched him uncomfortably. Maybe he remembered that night too. My mother held a box. Your grandmother's thing, said. I took it. Inside were letters, a small bracelet, and a photo of Daniel and me from our courthouse wedding. My breath caught. You had this? Mom nodded. Your aunt sent it to me. I kept it in my drawer. I did not know whether to be touched or angry. Both came. Daniel looked at the photo. We looked so young, so hopeful and wounded at the same time. Mom whispered. I looked at it more than I should admit. I asked, why didn't you call? She cried. Pride, fear, your father, myself. I don't know how to separate them any. That was the most honest thing she had. We walked through the house. In the hallway, family photos still hung. My graduation picture was there. Then nothing. No wedding photo. No Daniel. No grandchildren. 9 years of my life missing from the walls. Daniel no. Of course he did. My father did too. For once he looked ashamed. In the kitchen, he finally spoke. I was wrong about you. At first, I thought he meant me. Then I realized he was looking at Daniel. Daniel did not move. My father swallowed. I judged you before knowing. Then you helped me, and I still did not have the courage to admit it. The room held its breath. Daniel's voice was calm. That hurt Rachel more than me. Dad nodded slowly. I know. I looked at him. Do you? His eyes filled, but he did not cry. Maybe he could not. I thought if I admitted you built a good life, I would have to admit I destroyed my place in. That sentence landed in me softly and painful. There it was. Not full repair, but truth. I said you did. He nodded. I know. The house sold 6 weeks later. A young couple bought it. They were expecting their first baby. My mother cried when signing the papers. My father looked numb. I felt sad too, which surprised me. I thought I would feel victory. Instead, I felt like I was watching a chapter close that had been written badly but still belonged to my life. At closing, my share was transferred properly. I did not need the money, but I accepted it, not for greed, for truth. My grandmother had left it to me. I used part of it to create college funds for Caleb and Daniel smiled when I told him. Your grandmother would like that, I think so. My mother asked to meet the children. I did not say yes immediately. That was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Because part of me wanted to hand her the children and say, love them now, please. Make the missing years mean something. But my children were not tools for adult healing. I told her. She nodded. I will take whatever you allow. That was new too. No demand, no guilt, just acceptance. The dinner we never finished 3 months after the house sold. We invited my parents to dinner. At our house, my home, my rule. Daniel cooked ribs and roasted vegetables. I made cornbread from Angela's recipe. Caleb, now 8, asked too many questions about grandparents he had never met. Maya, 5, wanted to know if Grandma Bennett liked drawing. I told them both. We are getting to know each other slowly. Daniel's mother came too. That was Daniel's idea. I was nervous at first, but he said, if this is about family, let it be the whole truth of our family. Angela arrived early, hugged me, kissed the children, and helped set the table. When my parents arrived, my mother carried flowers and a small gift bag. My father carried nothing but looked like a man carrying. The first minutes were awkward. Caleb stared at them. Maya hid behind Daniel's leg. My mother cried when she saw them, but she wiped her tears quickly. I'm sorry, she said. I don't want to scare them. Angela watched from the kitchen doorway. Not hostile, protective. My father shook Daniel's hand. This time he used his name. Daniel. Daniel nodded. Mr. Bennett. Tom, my father said. That was a small bridge. Dinner began carefully. Caleb asked if they knew how to play Uno. Maya showed my mother a drawing of a purple house. My mother treated it like fine art. My father asked Caleb about school. Caleb said he liked science and hated spelling. Daniel said, he gets that from me. Everyone laughed, lightly. For a moment I saw what could have been. That hurt. Sometimes healing hurts because it shows you the shape of what was missing. After dinner, my father stood and asked if he could say something. My body tensed. Daniel. Angela noticed too. Dad looked around the table. At me. At Daniel. At our children. At Angela. Then he said, I spent years believing I was protecting my family, but I was protecting my pride. I rejected a good man, hurt my daughter, and missed years with these children. I do not expect forgiveness tonight. I just want them to know the truth came from me. The room was silent. Caleb did not understand all of it, but he knew enough to look serious. Maya whispered, is Grandpa sad? My father's face broke. Yes, Grandpa is sad because he made bad choices. Angela nodded. Respect. Not warmth yet, but respect. My mother then took a small envelope from her purse. She handed it. Inside was the baby photo I had sent 9 years ago. The one of Caleb worn at the edges. I kept it. She said I was too proud to answer, but I kept it. I cried then. I did not want to, but I did. Daniel reached for my hand on the table. My mother whispered, I am sorry I made you become a mother without your mother. That was the sentence that opened the deepest wound. Not healed it. Opened it. Let air reach it. I said, I needed you. I know. No, I said, voice shaking. I need you to really know. I needed you when he was born. I needed you when Maya had fever. I needed you when people stared at us. I needed you when I had to explain why my children had grandparents they never met. My mother covered her mouth. I know, she whispered again, but this time it sounded like she did. My father looked down. Daniel spoke softly. And I needed you to see me as human before you needed me as help. My father nodded. You are right. Angela finally spoke. Her voice was gentle but firm. My son deserved better from you. Rachel deserved better. These children deserved better. You cannot get back 9 years by crying at one day. My mother. We understand. Angela looked at me. Baby girl, you set the pace. Baby girl. My mother heard. I saw the pain cross her face. Not jealousy exactly, recognition. Someone else had mothered me when she refused. After dinner, the children played Uno with their new grandparent. It was strange, beautiful in places, painful in others. My father lost twice and pretended to be upset. Maya laughed. Caleb explained rules with great seriousness. My mother watched them like she was afraid to blink. When they left, she hugged me at the door. Thank you, she whispered. I said, this is a beginning, not an ending. She nodded. I know. Daniel closed the door after they walked to their car. I leaned against. Do you think people really change? He kissed my forehead. I think truth gives them a chance. What they do with it is on them. That night after the children were asleep, I sat on the porch beside Daniel. The gate hinge no longer squeaked. He had fixed it the day they returned. I thought about that. Maybe some doors can open again. But only after the broken parts are repaired properly. What my husband exposed, people say Daniel exposed my parents' truth. That is true. He exposed the old financial help. He exposed the hidden ownership. He exposed the way they used silence to protect themselves. He exposed the fact that they needed the man they had rejected. But the deeper truth he exposed was not just about them. It was about me. He showed me that I had spent years carrying shame that did not belong. I had believed some hidden part of my parents' rejection must have been my fault. Maybe I should have spoken softer. Maybe I should have waited longer. Maybe I should have made Daniel more acceptable to them. Maybe I should have found the perfect word. That is what rejection does. It makes the rejected person search themselves for the reason. But Daniel's calm truth stripped that away. My parents did not reject us because we failed. They rejected us because their love had conditions they were not brave enough to question. And when those conditions cost them access to my life, they chose pride. For nine birthdays, 9 anniversaries, 2 grandchildren, a funeral, a secret inheritance, a business note, a house. All those years, Daniel never forced me to stop loving them. He never used their cruelty as a weapon. He simply kept building with. That was the revenge, not the bank meeting, not the house sale, not my father finally admitting he was. The revenge was the life they said would fail becoming the life they needed to. The revenge was my children laughing in a home filled with. The revenge was Daniel standing in our driveway covered in dust from fixing a gate, while my parents realized the man they rejected had more dignity than pride. My relationship with my parents did not become perfect. Nothing became simple. There were still awkward calls, hard conversations, times I pulled back, times my mother cried and I did not rush to comfort her, times my father wanted to explain more than listen and I ended the conversation. But slowly they learned. They learned to ask before visiting. They learned not to speak over Daniel. They learned to call our children beautiful without acting surprised by it. They learned that my forgiveness was not a debt they could because they apologized. And I learned too. I learned that boundaries can exist beside love. I learned that reconciliation without accountability is just another form of silence. I learned that my children could know their grandparents slowly, safely, with truth around them like a fence. One afternoon, Caleb asked me why Grandma Bennett had not known him when he was little. I sat with him on the porch. Daniel was in the yard helping Maya ride her bike. I said Grandma and Grandpa made some choices that hurt our family. They are trying to make better choices. Caleb thought about that. Did Dad forgive them? I looked at Daniel. He is working on it in his own way. Did you? I took a deep breath. I am working on it too. Caleb nodded. Then he said, Dad says fixing old houses takes time because you have to see what's broken first. I smiled. Dad is right. The lesson at the gate years ago, my parents told me that if I walked out with Daniel, I should not expect to walk back in. They thought the door belonged to. They were wrong. Life built me another door. A better one. One with children's shoes near the mat, Daniel's work gloves on the porch rail, Angela's laughter in the kitchen, and a gate that only opened to people who respected the home inside. When my parents finally came to that gate, they did not find the ruined daughter they expected. They found a woman who had survived their absence. They found a husband who did not need to shout to show strength. They found grandchildren who were not symbols, not shame, not what people might say, but living proof that love is bigger than fear. And they found truth waiting for them. Truth about money, truth about the house, truth about my grandmother, truth about Daniel, truth about themselves. That truth cost them the home they had tried to save through silence, but maybe it gave them a chance to become people who no longer needed lies to feel safe. I do not tell this story because every family wound heals. Some do not. I do not tell it because every parent comes back. Some never do. I tell it because sometimes the person your family rejects becomes the person who protects your dignity when they return with demand. Sometimes the quiet husband they underestimated is the one holding the paper that exposes everything. Sometimes love does not just comfort you. It gives you the courage to stop accepting half-truth. My parents disowned me. Then my husband exposed their truth. But he did not expose it to destroy them. He exposed it so I could finally stop being destroyed by it. And if you are listening to this while carrying the pain of a family that made you choose between love and approval, hear me clearly. The people who force you to choose may not deserve the power to define what family. Family is not proven by matching names, matching skin, matching traditions, or matching expectations. Family is proven by who stays respectful when things are hard, who tells the truth when silence would be easier, who protects your heart without trying to own it, who stands beside you at the gate and says you decide. That is what Daniel did. And that is why, when my parents came back after 9 years asking for help, I did not collapse into the daughter they remembered. I stood as the woman I had become, loved, wounded, strong, and finally free.